Seer Show is a live broadcast of truth seekers and believers, empowering the evolution of consciousness. Rafael and Celeste will dive deeper than the mainstream media while answering the mind's deeper questions and transforming conversations. They will have unique guest speakers who will share knowledge, tools, and techniques to create coherence in our mind, body, and spirit.
Ho, ho, ho. Good morning.
Were you calling me there?
Not a thing, not a thing.
I'm fascinated, Mr. Rafael. That's great. I love the outfit.
I figure we're going to do a Christmas episode, and we're going to talk about all the different aspects and how this holiday has really touched so many people in so many different ways, and the way when I grew up and what is going on nowadays. And you know, it's the holiday that has turned into a money thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I think Coca-Cola had some very, very unique ideas, and they're still rolling with it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I do love the polar bear commercial. It's pretty cute, you know.
I had the privilege to grow up with snow, and that made it very special. And then moving to Australia in my mid-20s, and it was suddenly beach parties and bikinis and barbecues and heat waves. I mean, I'm talking about, you know, Queensland, Australia, everyone knows heat waves. And it's still not quite the same for me. And sometimes I fly home to Europe for Christmas, and having the snow and the Glühwein and the mountains and the Christkindlmarkt. So you have to actually speak German to really understand that word. It's the Christmas market.
Right.
Just beautiful. So some people are so used to having Christmas with snow, you know, and some are with the heat wave. Right. So what is it in New York? Just cold, wet, damp, and...
Man, you put this so negative. It depends, you know. It could be, we have crazy weather in New York, so we can even have a snowstorm or we can have nothing, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be wet, right? So it could be dry and cold, or it could be wet and cold, or it could be snowing and cold. But for me, one of the things that the snow coming down, it is the most gorgeous thing ever until 2 days pass. And then it's dirty and it's slimy, and then you don't know if you're going to fall on it. So, and it's a scary situation 2 days later, because if it gets colder, man, it becomes dangerous.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, our guest today, she's in London, and I think she has sort of a very similar story to tell, when it may be sometimes snow, sometimes mud. Her name is Suzanne Smart. And, you know, Rafael, I've worked with her before, and I've put on a broadcast prior, and she has truly fascinating stories to tell, working with adults that had trauma in their childhood. And the reason why we're bringing her on today is because Christmas, no matter if it's a heat wave or snow, these traumas come up. It's because it's all about family,
right,
parties, the pressure is on. So Susan has some very, very cool insights in keeping your boundaries up and talking about and also just speaking up for those who are dealing with maybe addiction or are trauma survivors. And Christmas is a difficult time.
it is.
So let's bring her on.
Absolutely. Suzanne, thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning for me. Good early morning for you, and good evening for you, Edsa, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, we were just discussing if you have mud or if you have beautiful snow for Christmas.
You have a mixture. It could be either or. And except for that we don't get the heat waves. I know that much. I'm on London time, but I'm actually living in Cardiff in South Wales. But I'm on London time. But yeah, we can very infrequently get snow. It's normally just before or just after, but Christmas itself, hardly ever. But it's normally really we call it muzzly and damp and grey over Christmas.
Damp and grey. That's no good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything happens inside for me. Don't go outdoors.
So let's go into, the last time we did a broadcast, we spoke a lot about the social withdrawal, which is that, especially if you're saying it's cold and damp and, and also darker at those times, especially here as well. Social withdrawal, triggers come up, we let our boundaries down a bit. And one thing you mentioned was people tend to feel quite bullied and pressured because of the culture. Like, come on, it's Christmas, come to the dinner, pull yourself together, don't be so selfish with your problems. This day is about family. And that's a really hard thing to hear for someone if they do deal with, let's say, alcohol addiction and their whole goddamn family is drinking all day, as one example, okay? And there's lots of other examples where people are like, well, I've had a lot of childhood trauma and now you will expect me to sit at the dinner table. So let's jump into talk about boundaries, talk about this social pressure and how to say no. And is it okay to say no?
Right.
It is absolutely okay to say no if you are uncomfortable with the expectations of everybody else, because very often we as humans, there will be the group or the pack mentality and everybody has to kind of go along with that. And it can be very daunting for a lot of people, especially people with open boundaries, to actually say, well, no, that, even if it's just for this year, that's not for me. So it can become a real bind, and it can make some people really depressed or anxious about it, about actually saying, not this time, not today, not this year, maybe not ever more. But the pressure can really be on. And it can be, from maybe the summertime what's the latest holiday now? Halloween. We didn't really used to celebrate Halloween, but every year it kind of deepens and deepens. So from Halloween, you get the Christmas decorations and Christmas presents, Christmas deals in the store. And from that moment on, I've noticed a heightened kind of sensibility to Christmas and all its good and bad areas. But people, they start to really dread Christmas, which is not what it's about.
No. Alcohol is like one subject I want to cover, because often when we talk about addictions, people think, oh, it's just drugs and alcohol. And just to clarify for the viewers and the listeners, that addiction can also be thinking negative, or maybe even being a narcissist, or being a bit of a show pony at the party and destroying the actual vibe or the purpose. So addiction is also very your behavior or substance. So talking about substance in this case, because no matter where in the world, but, as Rafael will be sharing the story about where actually Santa comes to which countries and where he doesn't, but let's be honest, alcohol is pretty much a very famous thing for the Christmas season. You've got the work parties, even like yoga classes do Christmas parties. Every single hobby you almost have. And then especially the work functions and the family functions. So what would you have to say to those who are dealing more with the drugs and alcohol? Because it must be so hard to stay sober. And it's almost like, do you suggest them to go? Or do you suggest them to just say no? there's other, opportunities to not be triggered. What would your opinion be?
My advice would be to have a really deep think about everything that's dear to you and look for your own values. And if anything doesn't fit with your values, because our values are a barometer, and if something does not fit with our values, it's going to bring us down. And, our only obligation is to our own self-worth, our self-image, our minds, and our self-care. We have to make sure that we are filling up our life cups, because no one else can do that for us. So if that doesn't fit with what we hold dear to ourselves, then we have to look for ways and find ways to enable us to be true to us. One of the great ways of doing that is, in my experience, is to have an alternative. And I think we spoke last time, Celeste, about, if it's a party, a group thing, there's always a spokesperson. There's always the person that arranges everything and is the one to deal with. And if you can get them on side and just explain to them, this year, this is not an option for me. And just tell them as much as you want to tell them. There's never any obligation to tell everybody everything. And, just kind of go around the subject as you feel best. Talk to the spokesperson and let the spokesperson give them the authority to speak to others, and they will speak to others for you. There's no need to phone around or ring around everybody, or, have those awkward conversations. Have it once and allow the spokesperson, and then you'll be flooded with compassion and emotion and, we didn't realize, you take the time you need. But I think in getting to the spokesperson, you are actually giving yourself the room then to breathe and just to be.
Wow, that's a really good idea, because you're right, especially with Christmas family functions, there's always the one person who organizes who's bringing which food, who's bringing which drinks, where's everyone sitting, what time, who's picking up grandma from the old people's home, who's doing this, who's doing that. So that is a really good idea. So instead of having to explain or justify yourself 30 times,
Absolutely,
you do it once. And you do it with a calm heart chakra conversation.
You're muted.
You're muted. Well, for that,
there must be a reason why I was muted, right?
Yeah. Were you talking about your grandma?
No, but you're both right in that respect, and I love that. But there are going to be people at a gathering who are going to be loud, rambunctious, and they're going to continually insist that you drink. I was recently at Thanksgiving at a gathering, and somebody kept asking me, how come you're not drinking? How come you only want water? What's wrong with you? It's like, whoa, hey, you chill. It's just because you want to drink, just because you want to jump in the pool, that doesn't mean I want to get wet,
Absolutely. I like that saying. And one of my favorite words is rambunctious.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, I can take it or leave it. But what I don't like is if I want to leave it, people come in and actually, it's like a red rag to a bull, isn't it? It's like an invitation for people to tempt you. And, I've got a wonderful gift of being able to silence a person with 2 words. Not the regular words. They don't begin and end in F. No. And it doesn't begin and end in F either. But I've just got this wonderful ability to just silence somebody with very few words. But we don't all have that gift. And I've learned over the years to do it without, really stinging people. It's a gift. But, we either end up offending them or they end up offending us. But you're right. There is always that louder person that wants to. And that's that points to them and their issues rather than you and yours. So it's always a really good thing to keep that in mind, because normally the loudest is not always the most structured or the most secure in their own self. So, you can kind of ask them quite quietly, what is it you want to see?
Wow.
Why? Yeah. What is it you want to see? What do you want? And that can almost always get them thinking, and that will normally send them in the opposite direction. I won't bother them. I'll go and bother somebody else.
Sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And and if that doesn't work, look, I'm here to enjoy myself. This is my way of enjoying myself. Allow me that.
Allow me that. Yeah.
But and that's fine and dandy if somebody has the strength, and we're talking to people who maybe have the strength, but some people are weak in the fact that they've been beaten down.
Yeah.
They are in a depressed state, right? Because maybe they feel alone, right? So sometimes to tell somebody no is difficult, and they have that issue, and so maybe in order to fit in, they go ahead and indulge, right?
Indulge. I think it's the overindulging that is really.
Yeah, that's without a doubt.
Yeah, that the problem also then that comes up with Christmas. I think no matter what in life, food, sweets, all these things, Christmas is a time where we always overindulge. And I think that's what we're also trying to maybe share with this episode, and going to all of us, try not overindulge too much this Christmas. And I love the way you spoke about your own values and your own morals, and really sort of thinking about, why are you really going there? Are you really going to be able to be yourself 100% there? Or are you going to go there, not be yourself? And then, especially as you said, Rafael, if you're not strong enough, then, it's going to collapse. It's not going to work out. So it's almost like, make a decision if you are really in this for 100%. And if you're not, then it's okay to say no.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And very often, if we are in a position where, some people are easily led because they don't have the strength to just say no, and they do give in. But once you do give in, then there's the guilt that follows. So it's about look forwards and think, if I do go, am I going to give in? And if I do give in, am I going to beat myself up? And beating yourself up afterwards is no help. So if you are going to give in, maybe have a limit, a self limit, but kind of look, all of this starts with us, doesn't it? It starts deep within us. How are we going to react to this? Am I strong enough to say no to Auntie Clara? And, if she keeps coming and giving me, as she sees my glass go down empty, is she going to refill it? Maybe just decide, well, I'll take 3 sips and I'll leave it. And maybe just wander around the room with it. Because if it isn't empty, then nobody can refill it. If you've got the strength for that, that's one way of doing that. I've done that many a time.
I have an idea.
You put your glass down, it gets refilled.
That's right.
And there's always somebody with the bottle looking. Don't let the glass run.
There's always somebody. I have an idea that we can all use. We can say, hey, by the way, I'm the designated driver.
That always works.
And then if they go, but wait a minute, you walked here. Exactly. I am the designated walker.
Yes.
So I can walk on a straight line back home.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
we have to empower each other. We have to come together in a time where, listen, I had a friend who took his own life during this time because he was alone. And he we would always visit him during the holidays, and he was in love with someone who was not in love with him. And she loved him as a friend. And unfortunately, he took his own life during this time because he felt more alone than ever. Because no matter how many times he tried to tell this young lady that he was in love with her, she was not. So, he was trying to force an issue that was not going to go anywhere. But the holidays, because he saw people hugging and loving and mistletoeing and all this stuff, and he felt like that was the end of it. And it's a sad time when people see other people coming together and they're not getting the love or the attention that they think they need. But remember, we first have to love ourselves, right? So for me, it's important that we recognize that if we are, and we're talking about parties, a lot of people don't go to parties, right? Because they're alone, because they're depressed. But we have to look at people around us and see what they may be going through, especially during the holidays, because a lot of people are more quiet than normal. So we have to look for these signs in people and say, hey, you know what? Maybe, maybe can we get lunch? Can we get a coffee together? Because maybe they say no. Maybe you're the one hosting the party and you invite someone and they're like, no, and then they put their head down. I'm okay. I got things to do. And then at that point is to realize that this is someone who may need just a friend, right?
Yeah.
And I love the way you suggested that, you can actually say to the person, okay, I accept that you might not want to come to the party, but
Right.
we'll do a special lunch together because it is still Christmas and you are my friend. And I accept you don't want to be in a room full of drinking and party hats,
Right.
so
Right.
we can have a little one-on-one. That's right. I think that's very, very important and beautiful, Rafael, that we look out for those who are saying no to the big parties, because there's a reason they're saying no, and offering them time, your time, because they can't spend the time there.
Mm-hmm.
And really in almost like, empowering that decision that they're saying no. Of course, it's sad to know if someone's not coming because they're depressed, because it would help to socialize. But
Right.
at the end of the day, Christmas is very confronting, and people tend to overindulge, so they're over happy, and so it's spending time with the right quality people and allowing yourself that.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the question, right? And we started the show with talking about different countries, different ways that they celebrate. And, you know, I believe, you know, let me tell you my story. When I was a kid, right, I didn't know what Christmas was. No idea. Zero idea until about the age of 8, right? And the only reason I even found out about Christmas is because I moved from a country that we did not, I'm sure they do now, but we didn't really celebrate Christmas. We celebrated because, I grew up Catholic. We celebrated the three kings and the journey they took. So the beauty of the way we did it is we used to go and pray in each other's homes. So I used to go to somebody's house this night, that time, and they used to have like little toys that looked like a village. So and then we used to take the three kings and we used to put them through, like they used to travel, and so they would go from one house to another house, and everybody would gather in those homes. And so it was more of about a celebration instead of like people drinking and getting crazy, and an overindulgence of presents. And I call the presents buying love, And it's a little crazy nowadays what I've seen, what I've experienced. So for me to be wearing this hat is huge because it I got disappointed with the American way of celebrating because I remember the beauty of sharing with other families, going to other families, walking the Three Kings, saying a prayer, playing with the other kids. And then I didn't even know who Santa Claus was, right? And then thinking about a Christmas tree, never even saw a Christmas tree when I was a kid. And it was on January 6th, which is when the Three Kings gave the gifts, that I would wake up as a kid with like underwear and socks by my head. And I was like, whoa, where did these come from? And to me, that was huge. That was my gifts. Things I needed anyway, right? So, and then I come to this country and there's gifts everywhere. And I'm like, whoa, and who's Santa? And why are we having this big jolly guy? And I don't want to sit on his lap. No.
Yeah.
So that was my, oh, I don't like Santa Claus. I don't like Christmas. So my interpretation of Christmas is very different than somebody who grew up with that tradition, right? So I still would love to go back to the way I grew up, but it doesn't happen here in the United States. Not for me anyway.
And it's a really beautiful story how they bring the frankincense, the myrrh, and the gold. I mean, that is, that's frankincense and myrrh. I have all three of them at home, especially the frankincense. Unfortunately, more frankincense than gold, I wish. But, there are these really beautiful stories behind it. There's one from Austria and Switzerland, Hungary. There's a few countries that do it in Europe, and now it's quite huge. And it's called Krampus, Krampus, Krampus. And it's for all the children. And they're big, scary monsters, and they come from the mountains, and they have big horns and teeth. And people spend their whole year to have this tradition, and the council will even pay them to host, like the same way Santa Claus, they often sew their own costume the whole year because they're excited to be Santa for that 1 year in the same shopping center. It's, they thrive for that. So these people create these monster costumes for Christmas, and they'll walk the streets and parades. And as a child, you have an option. Option one is you get a beating from Krampus because you were naughty, but therefore you'll get presents. Or you don't get a beating and you don't get presents. Now that is really screwed up for a child, by the way.
That is very screwed up.
Thank you. And
Wow.
I, again, like you, I didn't live in these countries before, moved to Austria around the age of 8. And my parents thought it was a wonderful idea to sit in this, kids' daytime club thing. And suddenly the door swung open and these Krampus's monsters came in. For me, I was survival mode. This is Austrian snow. And I ran 1 kilometer home in my socks because I was like, I need to survive this. And I ran home. And then imagine my parents. They have their 8-year-old daughter run into the house going, there's monsters that wanted to beat me. They thought I was absolutely mad. And then looking at my feet, and I had run home through the snow with my socks. And it's still quite a scary memory. But that's the thing when you grow up with different, very, very different cultures. So, and it's still very hugely celebrated, but again, with a lot of alcohol. So now you have the combination of people dressing up as monsters drinking alcohol. So, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So, well, let's bring it back to, we've got New York, we've got London, we've got actually in the middle, we've got Australia. And Australia doesn't have that much tradition. It's more that we follow you guys in America. So it's all about Santa and the stockings. And I felt like doing these episodes because, unfortunately, when I looked through all the statistics, the crime rate, so domestic violence, goes up to 30-40% on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And also the suicide rates go up. And I think that this is not personal opinions. These are statistics, guys. And even I was reading today, Australian statistics back in 2019, they had around 200,000 calls and reports on Christmas Day, where now 2001 and going into 2022, they're predicting, and last year was 370,000 calls. So that's nearly doubled. Okay, we had COVID, and we won't go into that too much, but what I'm trying to emphasize today is be safe, choose your environment, say no if that's what it takes. And as you said, Suzanne, really good example, find the tribe leader, explain it to them. But I really would like to express today, it's okay to say no and find out what truly is best for you this Christmas. I personally stay away from Krampus festivals, all right?
I would
I
too.
literally have a childhood trauma having monsters in the room and running for my life. Now I'm an adult. I know I wasn't in danger, but that was a process I had to go through, So things like that, and unfortunately, some people have memories of domestic violence and drinking from their childhood. So I personally think it's okay to say no. And that's why we also, pulled you and invited you to this broadcast, because you work with people that have childhood trauma. And it is very difficult for you to pretend for one day just to satisfy other people.
Yeah. It's a shame that kids, or even it doesn't matter whether you've had childhood trauma or teenager trauma or adult trauma, because when we think about a holiday, it's your interpretation of it. Is it family getting together, or is it, oh no, I'm going to see my aunt or my uncle or my grandma. They're abusive. They're not nice. And it's like, oh no, I have this dilemma that's going on, that I'm going to have to get together with these people because they're family, right? And it becomes a negative connotation to what we should be thinking of a happy time instead, right? So it could be traumatic. And you might have a great year until the end of the year, where the trauma builds up, right? Or should I say the drama too, right? Yeah.
Both, yeah, absolutely. And as Celeste said earlier, and if you are in any kind of club, then every kind of club is going to have some kind of Christmas do. And by Christmas Day, a lot of us can be Christmas dooed out. And you've got to think of people's pockets as well. If you have a family gathering and you're putting in for that, if you're just providing for your own self and your family, you have to think of that. If the yoga club and the sewing club and the choir and all of these different places that you frequent, if they're all having the work due, if they're all having that and you have to fork out for that as well, that can be a real strain on your finances. So sometimes you just have to pick your battles, and pick them well.
Oh yeah.
And pick them well. You said, yep, go.
No, like for example, and you're absolutely right. You do have to pick and choose, but you know what? Once again, we get into that berating aspect of it. Oh, why can't you pick, or why can't you do this? And sometimes you're right. You have to just say, hey, look, my budget won't allow it. If you say, don't take the blame yourself. It's my budget, you know. It's so say, listen, I wish if you want me to contribute more, would you mind contributing to me so I can, right? So turn it on them. Turn it
Yeah.
on them because you're right. There's a lot of things, you know, when we think about credit cards, right? A lot of people get into trouble during the holidays because they want to compete with their family members. They want to do things. Listen, my ex-wife used to be one that loved to show up with lavish gifts for everybody. Later on, I found out it was my wallet that was it was coming out from, and I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, did I just buy an expensive watch for that person who I barely know? Oh my gosh, and then later on, I'm like, wait a minute, why did the holidays cost me so much when I only bought gifts for at the time, my wife and my kids? Why is it that, you know, there's a couple of $1,000 for gifts for people who came to my house for the holidays? And I'm like, whoa, this is a little crazy. So she always wanted to be the one that everybody's like, oh, she's got the best gift. But it was buying love.
Mm.
And what I found out is that she did the same with my kids. So I would tell my kids, if mom is buying you a gift, then it's coming from both of us.
Yeah.
Because instead of trying to compete with her, which I would never win, because it was always, now that we're divorced, and my kids are older anyway, but when they were younger and we were divorced, it was always like, oh, mom got me this, mom got me that. I said, well, then that's cool, enjoy it. But I want to give you something that you want, not something that's nonsense. And when you take a look at a kid, what do they play with the most?
The
The
box that
box.
comes in.
Yeah.
The box. Forget the toys. You put
Yeah.
them in, you buy a big enough thing, you put them in the box, they're going to play all night.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cats get into it. We actually have our cat who always sleeps on paper. Any piece of paper you put down. So when we have our Christmas tree, at the bottom, the cat will religiously every single night sleep on the presents, and it that's, you know, it looks very beautiful. So
Well, it's also waiting for Santa Claus, right?
yes, he is. That's right. You know, you did also mention the whole when people are divorced, and I think there is always a lot of pressure in, you know, stepmom, stepdad, and you know, so some kids have, oh, you get 2 Christmases.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like, who even came up with that? So it's, you know, it's almost like you're teaching the child, now for Christmas you'll get even more presents
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're divorced, or you know, or you have 2 families. So that actually puts even more the upbringing into, well, I got a lot of presents, I need to give a lot of presents. So I think also be careful how you raise your children nowadays, in this modern way of, well, it's Christmas, we have to buy a lot of presents, or a lot of presents look nice under the tree. So are we losing a little bit of the value of, you know, what Christmas really should be, like that beautiful tradition of the 3 wise kings, you know, and always moving the 3 every few days a bit closer.
Yeah.
I had that as well as a child. And so I think there's a lot of financial pressure, and you can sit your children down and also explain what presents can be. So it can be, we are doing something together. You can't put a day of ice skating into a box, but it's memories, it's doing something. Because most kids just go and the presents are all opened, and then they run away. I think you mentioned that on your last broadcast. You said, let's be honest, the kids, they rip the presents apart and then they go, and then you see them back in the evening for food.
Yes.
It's like, how much money are you really going to spend on the present that excited them for, like, just for that sensation of, again, you're teaching them to overindulge. I have to have a lot of presents under the tree because it looks good. So sort of that, what are we teaching our next generation?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen, I have, where the kids only rip the present to see, they don't even finish ripping the whole thing. They just rip to see if that's the gift they got. Then they go to the next one, next one, next one. And if they don't get what they expected, they start crying.
Oh gosh. Yep.
And so the parents feel the pressure, or auntie or my uncle or this one always gets me the best gift. So I only want to open the ones from them, and everything else is just put aside, put aside, put aside. So there is so much pressure that is put upon every family when it comes to the holidays. And for the longest time, when I was many years ago, I, instead of having this cool hat, I had one that my ex-wife bought me. It said "Bah humbug," right? Because I did not understand the 50 presents for each child, and I have two kids, right? And I was like, this is overkill. I mean, why are we doing this to them? And so there's no value in what they have. There's not that, let's take that one present and go, wow, this is so cool. Play with it. And instead, what I used to see in my own household, which I did not like, was an abundance of wrapping paper that you can stand up to be 8 feet tall. And I'm talking about stashed up like this and stand up. And it was just ridiculous to me. And that's why I think I got that hat. And you know what? I wore it proudly because I said, it's not about the gifts. It's about family getting together. That was what it was for me. It still is for me. Thoughts?
Suzanne?
Yeah. I have also experienced the ripping off of the presents and paper and bows all over the room, and then the child walking off and coming back with an old toy and playing with the old toy all day, totally ignoring everything new and just playing with their old toy the whole day. And I thought that was quite weird. Yeah. But it the commercialism, I don't know if over there you have Black Friday. We have Black Friday, which is started off as the last weekend, the last weekend before Advent. I think the last Friday in November, and Black Friday is now about 10 days long. So kind of mid-October, early Black Friday deals.
We have people sleep in front of the stores the night before because everything's like 50% off, so you can buy your goddamn toaster 50% off, whereas you could have bought that toaster the whole goddamn year. And I think that fakeness of where it is Christmas, so you have to buy presents. First of all, you buy a present for someone if you really like them and they deserve one. I'm going to be that straight honest and even put that in there and go, they deserve one.
Yeah, and you don't have to beat them. You don't have to beat them either.
Yes.
I should have had a slide of the Krampuses.
Oh my gosh.
And we just before we were talking about, how it feels to be in an environment where you don't really want to be because you have different experiences. And I do just quickly want to pull up this one little slide. And I have a few also with helplines, because I really would like to also remind people you can ring helplines. There are volunteer tears over Christmas. And but just always, don't underestimate. Everything is energy based, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning this, because triggers can come from Christmas carols, the typical Christmas music, and so what most people then maybe don't realize is because the sound, the singing, and also the alcohol, and even the red outfits, that is all energy based, and some people could easily be triggered by that. So it's really the decision making, and how, what do you really think is best for you in this Christmas? What kind of energy field, and energy feels very sound related as well. And I personally really love and adore all the old school Christmas songs, all the Frank Sinatras and the Etta Jones and all of that. So they make me instantly happy. But I am also very aware that music can trigger people. So, and Suzanne, you often speak about when you host your clients, you support them to find out what triggers they have and how to identify them.
Yep.
Can we go into that a little bit, because now it's almost like trigger all around Christmas,
Absolutely, yeah. That's the first part of my positive imprint program, and it's called trauma triage. And we go through all of the little bits, and it's amazing when you say to somebody, how are you today? How was your weekend? And you allow them to talk, how much comes out. And from whatever comes out, I can pinpoint little starters to be going with, and kind of gently take them on the journey back to where those triggers happened. And it's wonderful to see the realization and the fact that we can get rid of those. And it's so heartwarming, because it's not something we get up every morning and think, oh, what's going to trigger me today? No, none of us do that. So to be able to recognize them, to be able to pull them all through and recognize them, deal with them. And it's not to say they won't come, but instead of them coming and slapping you in the face and getting the cortisol, the adrenaline going, you see them from way over there, and you can say, not today.
Not today.
You're picking on the wrong person now. Find something else to do with, with your time. And it's so amazing to give, to help people to find that power within themselves to do that. And we all have that power. It's just finding it. Or if you can't do that yourself, finding somebody who can help you to discover that, because we all have that within us.
May I add to that? You can't do that though when you're intoxicated. So, and I think that's the whole thing. If you are now willing to realize, okay, sound can be a trigger, a person can be a trigger, feeling and emotions. I personally suggest the more sober you are through this season, the less or the easier it is to identify triggers to then, as you said, not today. And I really appreciate the way you say just not today, because very often you say to people, they have to fix all their problems forever. And it's like, that's just goes day by day, small steps. And I think that's wonderful the way you said, just not today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like eating the elephant, isn't it? A bite at a time. Eventually you'll get there. But, everything is a process. And as long as that is at the back of your mind, that this is a process, set your context, set your expectations, so that, you don't upset yourself by not going as far as you would think. Set the goal and let that be the goal. And if you reach it, fantastic. If you don't, how far forward did you get? Because if you reach it, you will go forward. There's that old saying, reach for the moon, but if you miss, you land among the stars. And isn't that amazing as well?
Yeah.
Celebrate every step, because it's those little steps that lead to the big journey. You know, you don't take one giant leap and you're at your destination. You may never reach your destination, but look back and see how far you've come and celebrate every little step, you know, and even where we feel we failed, because if we failed, then we've learned something. What have I learned from that? And just reframe and twist things around, because, you know, I think the human expectation is to reach for perfection, and there is no such thing as perfection. But with practice comes progress, not perfection. So if we're always looking at the slightest progress, if today you can't get out of your bed, but you can think, do you know what? I have my life, I can breathe, and my bed is warm. And, you know, I have a family that love me, and I know this, even if I can't express that right now, then that's progress. You've achieved something that day. And if your best is there today, but tomorrow it's there, then celebrate that, because you're still living. If the next day it's kind of midway, then the next day it's, you know, it's out of the ballpark, still celebrate. You know, your best is where you are at that certain amount of time, and your best can change throughout the day. You know?
Definitely. I love that.
I'm
That's
no
great.
good. Yeah, after 9 p.m. I'm no good. Ask me nothing after 9 p.m.
I'm no good at
nothing.
6 a.m. So.
Mornings, I'm there. And it could be some, you know, different for, you know, I know other people that come alive at night. You know, I do, but only at the party. If I'm home, forget it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Chester says hello to us. He's coming all the way from Texas. So, Chester, thank you for saying hi and being up that early with us. I appreciate it. I don't know anybody else was crazy like me getting up so early to be on here with my great friend. So let's think about celebration, right? And we don't have to wait for the holidays. We don't have to wait for Christmas to celebrate our lives, to celebrate our family. I think that if we can learn to celebrate each other, then there won't be that pressure at the end of the year. Why is it at the end of the year we have to be pressured into, oh, time to celebrate? But if we were celebrating all along, you know, like I know every time I see Celeste, we just celebrate every single time. And because we enjoy each other, right? We enjoy each other's company. We have this connection, and we can have that with a friend. We can have it with a relative, and we have to appreciate the moment, right? We can't just, and you said it earlier, we can't take everything and put it all into one, right? We have to every day just appreciate and celebrate this beautiful life that we have been given. And it doesn't matter to me if life throws curveballs at you. If it throws lemons, we all know the saying, right? Make lemonade. But for some people, they take the bitterness that the lemons bring, and they dwell on that. They dwell on the bitterness, on the negativity. And if we can take some time, especially during the holidays, and reflect back on the whole year of what have we done to impact others? What have we done to, first of all, impact our own lives? How have we changed our negativity into positivity, right? Because every day is a new beginning for us to have that chance to empower. Listen, we can't do anything if we're not powered, right? We need to energize ourselves, right? We need to come in there, and if somebody comes in and they're a little down and they're mopey and they're just not smiling like we've usually seen them, then it's up to us to say, hey, How can I help? How can I be that light that you're looking for?
Mm.
So I think during the holiday season, let's be a light to first ourselves and a light to someone else, because there is a lot of depression. There is a lot of, people do take their lives at this time because they feel so alone. Let's reach out. Let's
Mm.
love one another. Let's share our love, right?
Mm.
That's a great image right there. Reach
Mm.
out, touch someone, not appropriately. I
Right.
mean, appropriately. I'm kidding.
There you
Touch.
are with your Santa Claus hat telling people to touch each other on live camera. For the
Try
viewers,
not to sit on old people's laps, right?
Absolutely.
and
Be
laugh more. You see, we're trying to also bring humor into
yes,
actually a very harsh subject. And I think the three of us, we're trying to almost we're trying to remind people of the mental health side of things, but then again, we're also trying to share love and laughter,
that's
you know,
right.
and humor, because sometimes love is the only way, and humor is very often the only way out as well. So,
Yeah.
so we don't mean to be confusing to our listeners or viewers, but it's.
Mm.
But you said reaching out, and I wanted to add one thing to that. If you made the decision not to spend the Christmas with your family, but you maybe don't have the strength to say, just no, I don't want to come due to my addiction or my mental health
Right.
capacity right now, you can also actually exchange it and go, I'm actually doing a soup kitchen this Christmas, or charity.
Mm.
I am a volunteer for other Christmas projects, because then you're also not alone at home. In a way, you don't have to lie to the tribe leader of that Christmas event, because the last thing we want to do in this episode is in any way to promote that lie. And but
Mm.
also you maybe don't have the strength to give the whole story of why you don't want to come. And Suzanne, can you remind me, please? You said it so well last time. Don't justify yourself.
Mhm.
Can you say
Give a
that again?
reason. Give a reason, not an
Reason,
excuse.
not an
Not an
excuse.
Reasons empower us, don't they? Excuses, we're kind of on the back foot, but a reason will empower us.
Mm.
So give a
Beautiful.
reason.
Give a reason. I love that. And
Yeah.
volunteers are so needed through this Christmas season.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
necessary.
Story to share, do it. Then maybe this is your calling for this Christmas,
Mhm.
to
Absolutely.
go and be a volunteer on Christmas Day. And you probably might, well, I have done it in the past, and I have met the most extraordinary people. So
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. The more we can
Absolutely.
give of ourselves, the more we
Mm.
are fulfilled, right?
Mhm.
When we can lend a hand, when we can help someone, um, and like I said, it's about creating that community, right? It's about uniting the world. The world's a big place, but if we hold hands, we can make a world of a closer, smaller,
Mhm.
more warm love, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I love eggnog. I just got to say it. It's the only time I don't take something that, and I know a lot of people put liquor in their eggnog. I don't. I don't put any liquor in my eggnog. But it's the only time that I do indulge in a little bit of something that's not necessarily healthy for me, right? And but it's a little bit. I only do, and when we remember, when we say no to one thing, we're saying yes to another, right? And when we say yes to one thing, we're definitely saying no to another. So be cognizant of what you say no to and what you say yes to.
mm.
First of all, say yes to love. Say yes to the people who empower you. And it's okay to say, you know what? I can't come to this party, or I can't go to this family function. And then sometimes you have to say, what would happen if I do go? What would happen? And then ask the questions for yourself. How would I feel, or how would I, or maybe my great aunt is, maybe this, it looks like this may be her last year, or my grandma or something. So maybe, and you go, well, I don't want to see Uncle John or Timmy or whatever, but I'm going to go because it's grandma's last Christmas.
Mhm.
So
And then you
sometimes
can
there is
spend
that little bit of sacrifice, right?
Sure. And sacrifice and that little bit of suffering for like bigger outcomes. And I think last time, Suzanne, you mentioned and saying, well, how about you just go for a short time?
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do the whole day.
Nope.
You can say, I'm going to come for this person, let's say, if you think it's their last Christmas, and honor someone, sacrifice, but short times, right? Can you quickly talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think with Christmas Day, with a lot of kind of get-togethers, it's sectioned out, isn't it? So everybody arrives, whether the present exchange is before or after lunch, or the dinner can last a good couple of hours if it's a big gathering. So you can just say, look, I'll come first thing maybe for breakfast, or I'll bring breakfast, I'll bring the croissants, whichever. And but I'll just stay as long, for that amount of time, and then I'll chip off because I want to be somewhere else that day. And at least they can say they've seen you, and there's no obligation. And we can sometimes feel really obligated to be the first day and the last to leave, where there are sections in the day that you can come. You may come for the movie, and that might be better for those who excuse me, who do have a family member that has to be the one that is, the loud, brash one, because when the movie comes on, everybody can sit and watch. And right, as soon as the movie's over, all right, that's me done, I'm off. So, you can come just for the dinner. Or if dinner can be a bind, just come before or after. But there are always those little nuggets of time that you can say, right, this is my favorite bit, so I'll come for that bit. And then everybody's satisfied because you get to see who you want to see. If there are children around, and you love being with the children, and the children don't stick around, so you can come for present opening, bring your gift at the same time, and then once that's over and done with, and very often people will then go, oh gosh, right, I need a rest now. While they're resting, you can chip out. So
Yeah,
again, just picking battles well.
beautiful boundaries. Yeah, make decisions.
Absolutely.
Write it down, see the outcomes of it, and make it a decision, an actual decision, what's best for you to stay.
Yeah. Commit to you and make that intention. Just commit to you.
Yes. And plan your exit.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Always be near the door.
Listen, Suzanne, this has been a great, great time spending with you and getting to know you. Thank you so much for being on the Seer Show. We are wrapping it up, literally. Get it? Christmas gifts, wrapping it up. I had to throw that one in there.
Yes.
So I just want to talk about next week. We have Ellie Huang coming on. I know that Celeste knows her well.
Yeah.
And we're going to have another great show. I hope everybody joins us. I hope that Chester will join us again next Tuesday. And Chester, we love having you here. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here with us. We are still, believe it or not, we are still looking for people who want to help us bring in great sponsors. We talked about, I've had some people who are interested in being a sponsor, but they were not a great fit for us. And yes, sometimes we have to say no, right? But if you want to sponsor us, just reach out to us and let's have a conversation, because it allows us to both know if we're the right fit.
Yeah.
And if we're not, we can, just go our own ways anyway.
Yeah.
But let's wrap it up one more time and say thank you, Suzanne, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And great advice. I
Very
love the have the intention of being there for you, right? Because life is very short. Let's enjoy every step, every process, and every person who touches upon our lives.
Yes. Beautiful. And Merry Christmas as well, right?
And
Bah humbug.
blessed Christmas.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye for
Bye.
now.